Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Module 3, Part 2, Forming a Counseling Group Foundations for Success. So, when we're talking about forming a group in counseling or helping professional context, it's not as simple as just gathering a few people and starting a discussion. The formation stage is foundational because it sets the tone for every session that follows and heavily influences the group's success or failure. So, there are several essential tasks and considerations involved in forming a group, and these must be approached thoughtfully and ethically. So, one of the first main tasks in forming a group is clarifying the group's purpose. This may sound obvious, but it's easy to overlook. A group needs clear, specific reason for existing, whether it's a support group for teens dealing with anxiety, a psychoeducational group on parenting skills, or a psychotherapy group for trauma survivors. The group's goals must align with the needs of the population being served, and those goals should be communicated from the start. Without a defined purpose, it becomes difficult to recruit appropriate members, plan sessions, or measure progress. So, once the purpose is solidified, the next task is logistical planning. This includes decisions like where the group will meet, how long each session will take, how many sessions will be planned, how large the group should be. These decisions are not mirror, they impact the group's cohesion, comfort, and participation. For example, too large a group might limit each member's chance to speak, while too small of a group might result in low energy or group dropout risk. So, additionally, the settings should be accessible, private, and comfortable enough to promote open sharing. So, recruiting members is another critical step, and recruitment must be done ethically with transparency. And what that means is counselors might post flyers or collaborate with schools or clinics or use online platforms. Whatever method is used, potential members must be given accurate information about what the group involves. So this can include the topic, the structure, the time commitment, any fees and expectations of participation. And whenever we're looking at that, ethical recruitment also means avoiding coercion or overpromising results, because we want members to be able to make an informed, voluntary choice about planning. So, next up is the screening process. And screening is also one of the most important but often overlooked aspects of group formation. Not every person who is interested in joining a group is a good fit, and that's okay. Screening involves meeting with potential members individually to assess their readiness for the group work, their ability to benefit from it, and whether they're likely to contribute to a healthy group dynamic. So this isn't about exclusion, it's about practicing and protecting both the individual and the group as a whole. So, for example, someone in acute crisis or severe social anxiety might need individual work before they enter into a group. Or conversely, someone who tends to dominate conversations or struggles with boundaries might need a different type of support before they're ready for group interaction. The screening process, we're not just evaluating the member, we're also starting to build rapport. So it's an opportunity to answer questions, clarify expectations, and begin to create psychological safety. And part of screening includes being honest about limitations. If someone isn't a good fit, we need to be able to compassionately explain that while also offering referrals and alternate sources for services. So once a group members are selected, another major task is to facilitate pre-group meetings or orientations. And these are incredibly useful, and yet they're often skipped due to time and budget constraints. So a pre-group meeting allows members to meet the leaders, learn more about the group structure, and ask questions in low-stakes environment. It also lets group leaders start to build trust and laying down some initial norms, such as confidentiality and respectful communication and shared responsibility for the group climate. So during the group meetings, we also introduce informed consent. So members need to understand what they're signing up for, not just practically, but emotionally. We need to talk about the potential benefits like learning new coping strategies, or finding support from others with similar experiences, and that's fine, but we also need to prepare them for the risk. So the risk of vulnerability, discomfort, conflict, or even the challenge of hearing other people's pain. So informed consent isn't just a legal box to check. It's about an ongoing dialogue about what participation means. And practical considerations are numerous. So we have to think about the group's composition. So are the members similar in age, presenting issue, or stage of change? Are there any known interpersonal conflicts that could derail the process? We also need to consider how we handle confidentiality breaches or disruptive behavior. So these decisions need to be thought through in advance, and policies need to be communicated clearly from the beginning. So now let's talk about setting some ground rules. This is a fundamental part of the forming stage of group, and it's often done in the very first session. It should be done in the very first session, but ideally previewed in the pre-group meeting. So like basic group rules should be previewed in the group meeting itself. Ground rules include confidentiality, so what stays in group or what happens in group stays in group, punctuality, mutual respect, and guidelines for participation. But they're more than rules, they're agreements that shape group culture. So group leaders should involve members in co-creating these norms, which enhances buy-in and accountability. This can be done through discussion where members share what they need to feel safe and supported in the group. Excuse me. Leaders can then guide the conversation to ensure that core ethical and legal requirements are covered as well. At this stage, it's also important to discuss the group contract or agreement. This might be written or verbal, depending on the group type, but it should cover what members are agreeing to. So attending consistently, being honest, keeping things confidential, and being open to giving and receiving feedback. Having a clear agreement helps members to understand that their roles are active, not passive, and it sets the tone for mutual responsibility. Another key task is establishing trust. This can't be rushed, but it starts in the formation stage. So leaders foster trust by being consistent, being transparent, being non-judgmental, and also being warm. Members build trust with one another through small discussions or disclosures, active listening, and shared experiences. And the leader sets the tone here by modeling vulnerability and respectful boundaries. It's also vital to recognize that not all members will enter the group with the same level of readiness or comfort. So some might have prior group experience and jump in quickly, while others might need more time to feel safe enough to speak. So that's okay. The leader's role is to gently encourage participation while respecting each member's pace. So sometimes leaders will use structured activities early on to break the ice and help members to begin connecting in low pressure way. But as the group begins, the leaders should also be aware of subgroup formation. And what that is small cliques that can form naturally, but sometimes become exclusionary. Monitoring group dynamics from the start helps the leader to address issues early. And group formation also includes beginning to establish roles. So some members may naturally take on the question asker, the listener, or the resistor. Leaders watch these early patterns and gently intervene when roles become too rigid or problematic. Leaders in the formation stage also need to be attuned to issues of diversity and inclusion. So members may come from very cultural, racial, socioeconomic, or spiritual backgrounds. And these differences can enrich the group, absolutely, but they can also be sources of misunderstanding or discomfort. So leaders must set an early example of cultural humility and create a space where all identities are acknowledged and respected. This might involve using inclusive language, naming power dynamics explicitly, or inviting members to share aspects of their identities that are important to them. Group formation is also a time to set expectations around conflict. So many people enter group counseling believing it should always feel good, be safe, or harmonious. And that is simply not the case. While safety is essential, conflict is inevitable and often necessary for growth. So leaders can normalize the idea that discomfort or disagreement is part of the process and teach members how to navigate it productively. The formation stage is also a stage where leaders begin establishing their authority. So not in a punitive way, but in a holding, grounding way. So members need to feel that the leader is competent, fair, and emotionally present. And this doesn't mean having all the answers. It means being consistent, setting boundaries, and responding to challenges with thoughtfulness and confidence. Another important thing that we need to discuss is documentation and record keeping. So this begins at the group formation stage as well. Here, leaders must take on the responsibility of tracking attendance, maintaining confidential records, and documenting incidents or challenges that arise. So ethical practice includes having a system in place for data protection and communicating to members how their information is being used and stored. So wrapping this all up, we're going to talk about co-leadership. So co-leadership adds another layer of complexity. And selecting co-leaders isn't just about availability, it's about compatibility in style, values, and approach. So ideally, co-leaders should complement each other. For instance, if one leader is more structured and task-oriented, the other is more nurturing and intuitive. So they might balance each other out. During the formation stage, co-leaders need to work closely to plan group structure. So this is also where they work together to establish shared experiences and divide responsibilities. It's not just about logistics, it's about relationship building and between the leaders themselves. So that relationship sets the tone for modeling, respectful communication, and collaboration of the group members. But as with the group itself, common issues that arise in co-leadership during the formation stage is also conflicts about decision making. or unclear division of labor, or differences in leadership styles. So these need to be addressed proactively. Regular planning sessions and post-group debriefs are essential. So making sure that you have time to get together with your co-leader and plan the session out together. And then when the session is over, debrief together, even if it's a brief time. So this allows for open communication and mutual respect to be the cornerstones of a successful co-leadership. So a good co-leadership team also discusses how to handle disagreement in front of the group. So disagreements are natural, but if handled poorly, they create anxiety and split the group itself. So leaders should have a plan, like will they pause and take a moment outside the room to regroup, or will they model healthy disagreement and negotiation within the group itself? Either approach can work, but it must be intentional. So wrapping this all up and to summarize, forming a group is an involved process. And it goes beyond just gathering people in a room. It involves clarifying the group's purpose, planning the logistics, recruiting and screening members, conducting pre-group meetings, establishing roles and agreements, navigating early dynamics, and setting the tone of trust, cultural respect, and psychological safety. Co-leaders must work in harmony, anticipate challenges, and model the values they want the group to embody. When group formation is done thoughtfully, ethically, and rationally, it creates a strong foundation that supports deep and transformative group work. And it sets the stage for vulnerability and connection and meaningful change. And that's what group counseling is all about. So again, thank you for finishing out Module 3. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Otherwise, enjoy your week.